So, welcome everybody. This is the first of our six-point discussion evenings. And this comes from, you may know we've sort of taken as our theme for this year, lineage and legacy. And that makes a lot of sense to me coming on the heels of the leadership transfer that we did here almost a year ago, so last June. Our founder, Okumura Roshis, stepped back from day-to-day leadership, and this one stepped up. So as part of just trying to discover and work with what continuity should be here, it's important, I think, that we really understand what we've inherited immediately from our ancestors. So when I arrived about 7 years ago, I started trying to come to grips with what exactly is Sanshin for, right? What is this place about? What have we inherited from our last three immediate ancestors? What do they think is most important? What should we be carrying on? And for me, as somebody who comes from communications, my secular career was in communications, what is it that Sanshin offers in the national Dharma conversation, in particular? What is the particular voice, the particular flavor of this family? And how do we preserve that and make it available to people? It's not better or worse than anybody else, but it's a particular flavor. So how do we carry that? So I had a number of conversations with Okumura Roshi kind of over like 2 years, teased these things out. Also looked around at what was Sawaki Roshi teaching, what were we actually inheriting from Okumura Roshi himself. And the result of that, one of the results of that was this list, this series of 6 points, 6 major points in our practice. So today we're taking up the first one, which is Zazen in a Buddhist context. So I'm going to just say a few things about that, just to set the stage a bit, provide a bit of context. This may not be new territory for you if you're used to practicing here, but I think it's good if we have some kind of shared base. So we'll talk about what exactly is that about here at Sanshin. I will kind of throw the floor open for whatever responses, questions, reflections, ideas people have about that. And I do have some discussion questions that I'm going to start to throw out to this group just to help us think through or explore in new ways, kind of what does this mean? If we don't get to my questions, I don't care. That means everybody's engaged and everybody's got things to say, and that's like the best of all possible worlds. But don't worry that this is all on you to sort of respond to something if you're not sure what you want to say. So lurking is okay, but I really encourage offering your experiences with this, your ideas about this, your encounters with it, your struggles with it. Maybe this doesn't make sense. Maybe you don't really like these things, right? So let's kind of, as a community, explore this thing. So you might be thinking, well, of course, Zazen in the Buddhist context, of course, Zazen is Buddhist. Like, what else would it be, right? Is there any way, any other way even to think about this thing? Of course, it's a Buddhist thing. There's really nothing to discuss tonight. Like, why is this even a consideration? But the meaning of this point really is not to convince anybody or everybody that Zazen is a Buddhist thing, because in fact, of course, Zazen itself as an activity is not necessarily Buddhist. Zazen doesn't have any flavor, color, label, right? So Zazen could be a lot of things. So it can be used for, as we know, various things in various circumstances. So the most important things to me about this point in our 6 points of practice, several things. So we really need to understand the common thread that runs through from the teachings of Shakyamuni, right at the beginning of this tradition, through the Mahayana tradition, through the teachings of Dogen Zenji, to Sawaki Roshi, Uchiyama Roshi, Okumura Roshi, and where we are today. So there are lots of different kinds of Buddhist meditation, which we know if we've looked at all at the early traditions, the early teachings. There are lots of things under this umbrella called Buddhist meditation, right? They are not all Zazen. There are different systems, there are different goals, different objectives, different outcomes, different activities. So it can be confusing. You may remember coming to this tradition, last week or last year or 20 years ago, and being sort of immersed in this world of instructions about how do we sit, and going, well, this isn't what my teachers are telling me. I'm reading this thing, and then I'm hearing this thing, and I'm seeing this thing, and they don't match up. And the reason is there are lots of kinds of Buddhist meditation. So sometimes there are linear paths related to sitting, which are sort of designed as skillful means to keep people from giving up their practice, right? So to be introduced to things little by little, to be given a series of steps, to be given a series of techniques. Here, try this. When you've mastered this and you've achieved this, we go to the next thing, right? It is a skillful means to encourage people. We're feeling a little bit of progress. There's a little bit of, achievement going on there. We reach one level or goal. We say, teacher says, good, you're done. Here's the next thing. Here's the next koan. Here's the next technique. Here's the next thing, whatever. So those stages are a means of encouragement. So as we know, Dogen says, Zazen is not like that. Those things are fine. That's not what Zazen is about, and that's not the way we approach our Zazen practice. So our Zazen practice does not make use of skillful means in that way. So to me, I see a real connection with our main Sanshin theme, approach, whatever, of non-reliance, right? What are we relying on to drive our practice? It is not a series of steps in achieving one thing and the next thing. So when we sit down, we open the hand of thought. That's a transparent practice, right? There's nothing we're hanging on to. So, we're not clinging to something. We're not requiring any particular circumstance. We're not looking for any particular outcome. So you can take Zazen in that way outside of a Buddhist context, right? And in North America, that happens all the time, right? Zazen for productivity, Zazen for stress management, Zazen for lots of things, right? Zazen gets colored by a lot of things. It gets conflated with a lot of things, especially those of us that may carry more than one religious tradition. We can compare Zazen with contemplative prayer, or centering prayer, or lots of things, right? So there's a lot of syncretism that can happen when Zazen moves from culture to culture to culture. Again, those things aren't necessarily bad, but we need to be very clear in seeing what's happening there. So as we know, we only do 4 things in our shikantaza, right? We take the posture, we keep the eyes open, we breathe deeply, softly through the nose, and we open the hand of thought. Those are the only 4 things we do. So there is no engagement with a question. There is no body scanning. There is no contemplating a phrase. There is none of that. There is simply we sit, we open the eyes, we breathe. We let go of thought. That's the only thing we're doing. So anyone really from any faith tradition or none can engage in that. It doesn't require that we believe in something, or that we're coming to that from any particular spiritual context, right? Many, many years ago when I was in Minnesota, my cousin from Mexico City visited me, and my cousin's family is very Catholic, and they've been Catholic for a long time. They're actually French, right? So she was happy to come to the Dharma Center with me because I sat doing Zazen, and she sat next to me doing the rosary. And I thought, for me, that was fun. That was great. I was glad she was there. But anybody can walk into that whole Zazen thing and sort of make of it what they will. So it's helpful, we certainly welcome everyone to join us in our Zazen practice, it's helpful for us to understand the basis of this transparent practice within Sanshin-style and spirit. What are we doing in this family, in this place, when we sit down to do Zazen? So if we really understand what Zazen is about, if we really understand that our Zazen is based on emptiness, then we see that we really kind of lose something if we divorce it from its Buddhist container, from its Buddhist context, or this tradition. So when Shakyamuni realized awakening under the Bodhi tree, he knew very immediately and very directly about suffering. What's the cause of suffering? Suffering is about clinging, right? We're grasping, we're clinging to something. Most importantly, the thing we cling to the most is these 5 skandhas, right? 5 skandhas clinging to 5 skandhas, calling it me, and giving it a name, giving it a form, giving it some kind of idea, right? We think we know what that is, and we think that it's permanent. We think that this me never changes, that there's something called self that we can cling to forever. It's always there all the time, right? We think it's permanent. So Buddha also saw that the way for those 5 skandhas to be free from clinging to 5 skandhas is to take up the Eightfold Path, right? And to come to understand emptiness. and what emptiness is. So experiencing that emptiness in our Zazen, or not in our Zazen, is the equivalent of, what Dogen Zenji calls Shinjin Datsuraku, dropping off body and mind. It's also the same as Suzuki Roshi's Zazen is good for nothing. It's also the same as Uchiyama Roshi opening the hand of thought. It's also the same as Okumura Roshi 1 = 0 = infinity, right? So we see the thread through this Buddhist tradition and how our immediate 3 ancestors have, in particular, and 4 if you count Dogen Zenji, have articulated that. This is not Zazen in order to. This is not Zazen in order to have a peak experience. Zazen in order to manage our body. Zazen in order to achieve something. This is emptiness, transparentness, suchness, opening the hand of thought, letting go of ideas about Zazen, letting go of ideas about 5 skandhas, so we can see how in that way we can color Zazen with things, with various things. So our Zazen is supported by all the elements of this Soto Zen tradition that help us to sit down and understand emptiness or experience emptiness, not understand this way, right? And to actualize Buddha nature, to actualize awakening. So this 8-fold path, we know, is grouped into 3 sets of elements. We have wisdom and ethics and compassion, prajna, shila, samadhi. And Zazen very much is in the middle of that. We really understand our Zazen, support our Zazen, undertake our Zazen in the midst of prajna, shila, samadhi. On their own, so all of those things are supporting each other, right? You can't really separate them. And on their own, they're much less meaningful. So if we only focus on wisdom, if we only focus on ethics, if we only focus on samadhi, concentration, sitting, right? Things don't work as well. These things are really very deeply interpenetrated. So for instance, if we don't keep precepts, if we don't live an ethical life, if we don't pay attention to sort of our moral lives, it's really hard to settle down in Zazen. It's really hard to open the hand, right? We're agitated. If we're hurting others and engaging in unwholesomeness and sort of setting up an unwholesome life for ourselves is very, very difficult to sit down in Zazen and then open the hand and settle down and go, oh, now I see clearly what's happening. I'm really caught up in my stuff, right? We're just too agitated by what's happening with ourselves, what's happening with others, what we may be spilling onto others, right? So, we can also develop clarity and insight. We can say, well, I'm really going to focus on this wisdom thing. We can really develop some, clarity and insight is a good way to put that. Become really sort of calm and steady, and then use those skills for some really unwholesome stuff. I can gain a lot of clarity and insight about stealing people's cars or, committing murders or, hurting the environment. I can really decide I have some particular goal and I'm going to be very skillful about how I achieve that thing, but is that thing wholesome or unwholesome, right? So we can really develop ourselves in some ways that take us, kind of go off the rails. Is that the point of what we're doing? So, if we're not seeing clearly from the wisdom point of view, seeing how the universe actually works, not just sort of accepting our views, our ideas, our stories that we write about ourselves or for ourselves, right? Then we don't have any ideas about what Zazen should be, what Zazen's for, right? That's where our wisdom can really help us. Like, how does this universe actually work? What is Zazen actually doing? What's it actually about? And of course, the reverse is also true. Our Zazen supports carrying out precepts. It supports skillful activity, wholesome activity, cultivation of wisdom and compassion and all those things, right? So we're not using Zazen in order to. I'm not sitting Zazen in order to become wise or to become compassionate or to live a moral life, but we see how these things are really deeply interconnected. So if we're sitting Zazen without the ethics piece, without the wisdom piece, what are we doing, right? Are we really fully engaging in Zazen in this practice? So another example is our 3 kinds of practice activity in this tradition: Zazen, work, and study, right? And again, these things are pretty deeply interconnected. So to do one without the others is less than ideal. So, study, for instance, is about understanding the nature of our Zazen, if you will. We don't undertake study simply to gain a lot of intellectual information. What we're really doing with our Dharma study is coming to understand Zazen. So, as we say sometimes here, we're understanding our practice and practicing our understanding. These two things are very closely tied. So, work. When we think about, for instance, the Genzo ways or the Dogen lectures that Todo-san does, it's easy to come to those things when it used to be a full-blown in-person retreat, and I had 50 people all attending these retreats. People sort of sometimes would say, well, yeah, that pesky Zazen. We're really here for those juicy lectures. Really, that's the value piece. I don't care about that Zazen stuff, but give me these lectures. We really had to help people understand those two things are not separate. The Zazen, we're not undertaking the Zazen in order to understand Dogen Zenji's teachings. Dogen Zenji is teaching us about Zazen. The Zazen is the primary thing, and the Dogen study is about understanding that, right? Early on, Okumura Roshis said it's really kind of dangerous for us to sit as much Zazen as we do. And if you look at our retreats in Sesshin, you see we're not doing Dokusan, we're not doing work periods, we're not doing liturgy, right? We're just eating, sleeping, and sitting. And he's thinking it's kind of dangerous to do that much Zazen without really deeply understanding what we're doing. And on that basis, he's talking about Dogen Zenji. So we have to make sure not to kind of flip those things around. Okay, so Zazen work and study. So work practice. Work is not simply about putting in the volunteer time. So yes, your local Dharma center needs your volunteer labor. There's no question somebody needs to cut the grass and clean the zendo and pay the bills. But really, one of the things I asked Okumura Roshi some time ago was, what do we not understand about our practice? What would you really like us, what do you really wish we understood that we really don't? And he said, Zazen is, work is not volunteer work. Work is a practice of investigating community within this practice, within this tradition. So yes, we need to take care of the building. Yes, we need to do all of those things, but we really have to approach those things as practice. So it's really a study of interconnectedness, and that interconnectedness is grounded in our Zazen. So I'm always happy to see new people arrive for a work day. It's a wonderful gateway into the Sangha, into the practice. Pretty much it's not a scary thing. Everybody knows how to rake leaves. We're not asking anybody to do something exotic, but my hope is that that's a gateway toward coming to sit Zazen, right? I hope we don't have people only coming to work day and never doing anything else. So, if we're not participating in the functioning of the community, but we're sitting Zazen, our Zazen tends to become my Zazen, right? It tends to become my possession. It's very personal. Whereas if we're doing this in the context of a community and in the context of work practice, now my Zazen is about something bigger than me. So this is not my, my baby. This is not something I personally own. It's not something I'm doing for my own gain. My Zazen is simply what I do with my community, and work practice is what I do with my community, and study is what I do with my community. So again, divorcing that from that context, divorcing Zazen from Zazen work and study, we lose something significant. We lose something important. So it is possible to take Zazen out of its Buddhist context. That's just not what we do here. In this family, we're not in it for the stress reduction. We're not in it for the increased productivity. We also understand that Zazen is an integral part of a much larger system of teachings and practices and a much larger tradition. It is not simply a spiritual technology that sort of functions by itself. It's deeply rooted in the rest of this tradition. So we don't need to be academics or venerable teachers, right, to do Zazen. We don't have to sort of study first and then sit. We don't have to learn all about Zazen and get a learner's permit and then start sitting, right? Folks come in all the time, new people, and the first thing Sawyer does is teach them to sit. It's something we can do right from the beginning. So, if that was not the case, there would be no on-ramps for any of us. There would be no beginner intake, right? There would be no way to get started. So, we teach first-time visitors to sit. They can sit quite efficiently and effectively right away. But once we begin sitting, we start to see how this fits into an overall wholesome approach to living our lives. I'm sure when beginners arrive, they're not necessarily looking for a whole new life or a religious tradition or something. Most of them come in because they want to learn to sit, and they have some idea about what that is. But once we begin sitting and we connect with the community, we really see what the larger context for Zazen is. And we see that through line, right? From Buddha through Dogen, through our immediate ancestors, and down to what we're doing today.